I got to say, it does drive me nuts when I'm on here. I like making weather reports every day, and you come on here and you're like, wow, Joey's always right. Joey's always right about the weather. But then I say something about climate, and you're like, whoa, well, he doesn't know anything about climate. Well, how am I right about the weather if I don't understand climate? The two are inextricably linked. Right. The reason why I'm good at weather is I understand climate, and the reason why I understand the climate system is I understand weather. And it's like you can't separate those two things. You can't sit there and be like, well, he's really good at the weather, but he doesn't know anything about climate. Anyways, we're going to take a little step away from climate necessarily right now and talk about another impact that humans are having that's very concerning, and we crossed some thresholds of, which is ocean acidification. Let's go. There it is. This is bad news. My God.
Falling out right now.
Anything could happen. Get on! Wow. I'll watch the video later.
3 more million in water.
They try mopping this. Hit like, share, subscribe. Joey Only Caribbean Weather Dude YouTube channel. All the support helps. I'm fighting uphill battles all the time. I'm saying things that aren't the popular narrative. Maybe it's my left-handed nature where I can't help but push back on things I know aren't true, that I know aren't real, that I know are just cherry picking certain things and not looking at the big picture. The left-handed people tend to have an ability to see the big picture, and it drives us crazy. That's the truth of it. And you talk to a lot of left-handers, you'll understand why. 20% of the top intelligentsia of planet Earth are left-handers, while only 10% of people are left-handers. So twice the rate we're represented in terms of like academic greatness and intellectual greatness. It's because left-handed people are different. We're weird, and we just can't help it. We can't help it. So here's an article I was reading today I thought I should share with you. The ocean just hit an ominous milestone up on Grist. A new report sounds the alarm on ocean acidification as Earth breaches the 7th of 9 planetary boundaries. Let's talk about the planetary boundaries today. So the article goes on to talk about how we're the product of a very stable planet. It says around 12,000 years ago, the Earth warmed from the Ice Age, and we've had a relatively consistent climate, and that's true. It's allowed humans to adopt agriculture, putting down roots. I think we've had periods like this where humanity took steps in the right direction in our growth, and then we were slammed back down with another ice age, and it kind of suppressed what we could do, where we could grow, how our civilizations could, in fact, come about, right? And so finally we hit this point of stability that seemed to last for a long enough time that we were able to start agriculture, farming, and building armies and making cities, and civilization began to flourish. I think humans were smart enough to create a civilization hundreds of thousands of years ago. I don't buy into this idea that 300,000 years ago people were idiots. No, I think given what they had to work with, they were very smart to have survived multiple ice ages. Humanity has survived a lot of things because we're a very adaptable, skilled, and unique creature on planet Earth. And sure, now we came to this point where suddenly things really got stable for thousands of years, and we were able to start building civilization, and we took it for granted because our short-term memory doesn't think back to what life was like 20,000 years ago for our ancestors. We only look at what is normal today and then and go with that. Well, what if we destabilize what is normal today? What if we throw out of whack the things that are normal today? It's going to have an impact down the road. And you can't just look at today as the only reality. If you don't understand our history, you don't understand where we're going to go. And if we've created a situation on Earth where we've sped up the process of the end of the ice age, the actual ice age, which is there's still glaciers on planet Earth. We're still technically in an ice age, and we are speeding up the rate at which we're coming out of that. That's a little bit different, though, what today's topic's about. It's about ocean acidification. However, the two are inextricably linked because you put greenhouse gases into the atmosphere that are carbon-based. You're burning coal and things like that. It's going to result in acid rain. And, to the point where, we used to see cities like Sudbury surrounded by no vegetation because before they put the super stack in, and it was a very dirty place, a very toxic place to breathe the air. It was acidic. Everything around Sudbury died from the acidic nature. Then they put a big super stack in. They sent the acidic gases that eventually became attached to raindrops and dropped on lakes in northern Quebec. I've been in places like Algonquin Park where you sit there and it's a dead lake. There's a dead lake at where my hunting camp is in Ontario. It's completely dead. A lake that should have fish in it and everything, completely dead from acid. This was a big story back in the 80s, and it kind of went away. Well, it went away for a number of reasons because we have had some improvements in how dirty cars are and the combustion engines are and how much we're putting out. We've had some improvements in that we're not using coal-fired power plants near as much. So we've seen a reduction in acid rain, but it's still happening. It's still a thing. Okay. So the stability we have now, it's being shattered. More than 8 billion people are doing things that are rapidly heating the planet, ravaging the ecosystems, and plundering the resources. So scientists are warning we've crossed a planetary boundary. This is a threshold that keeps Earth's systems hospitable to life as we know it. A sort of global resilience that allows the planet to absorb major shocks, like an asteroid hitting it. The planet has bounced back, and we have these thresholds of survival, right? This time, it's the relentless acidification of the seas that's crossed into dangerous territory, threatening all manner of marine life, including organisms at the base of the food web. Of the 9 planetary boundaries, this is the 7th that's been breached. What this health check again and again shows is that we have one interlinked, interconnected Earth system, says Levke Caesar, co-lead of the Planetary Boundaries Science Lab at the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research and co-author of the report. This is an actual scientist. It's not some guy like me who has a lot of knowledge and is sharing it. No, this is an actual scientist. They're doing actual science work there. He says it would be fatal if we just concentrate on climate change because, as we see, there are 6 other boundaries that have been transgressed. And we're actually increasing the pressure on all of these 7 boundaries. Think of a planetary boundary as a warning sign on the road. It's like the end of the cliff is coming. It represents a tipping point in which the Earth system dramatically changes, often irreversibly. Researchers are worried, for instance, that parts of the Amazon may be nearing a transformation from rainforest to savanna due to compounding crisis of climate change and deforestation. If that's the cliff, the concept of a planetary boundary is a big yellow cliff ahead sign, a warning from scientists that we are approaching catastrophic shifts. Or to use another metaphor, a planetary boundary is your doctor warning that you have a high blood pressure, and the tipping point is the ensuing heart attack. We are setting the planetary boundaries in such a way that, as long as we are within the safe operating space, we should prevent the crossing of tipping points, Caesar said. Before ocean acidification was added to the list this year, researchers warned that 6 other boundaries had already been crossed. The climate is changing rapidly. Humans are using too much fresh water. We're driving species to extinction and transforming the biosphere. Forests are shrinking. Fertilizers are polluting water bodies, and novel entities like chemicals and plastics are streaming into the environment. Ocean acidification is intimately intertwined with the planetary boundary of climate change because seawater absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and indeed has soaked up a quarter of humanity's carbon dioxide emissions. A quarter of the emissions we've made has been dealt with by the ocean itself. It's done something to help us, right? There's enough plankton and phytoplankton and things that are reliant on carbon that it's helped to reduce how much carbon actually has gone into the atmosphere by a quarter, the ocean itself. That's helped keep the planet from warming faster, but also creates carbonic acid. Accordingly, the report notes that ocean acidity has grown 30 to 40% since widespread burning of fossil fuels started back in the industrial era. Go back a couple hundred years. This is perilous news for oceanic life forms. Many organisms like coral, mollusks, and crustaceans build shells for protection, but carbonic acid reduces the amount of calcium carbonate available for them to do so. And what they manage to build will be continuously eroded by the increasing acidity of seawater, requiring them to add new layers to their homes to keep up. Acidification affects a lot of marine organisms physiologically, says Peter Rupnarine, curator of geology at California Academy of Sciences, who wasn't involved in this report. He's someone else who's talking about similar things. Whether that's for a properly functioning respiratory system or for building up external or internal skeleton, it affects everything from the larvae or the development of these organisms all the way up to the adults. Acidification and rising water temperatures also cause coral bleaching. We're seeing a big time rising in the water temperatures. That's the reason why we've seen such bizarre weather in BC the last couple of years, is the Pacific is warmer than it's ever been measured to be right now. It's incredibly warm. Now we got a nice big warm blob off Vancouver Island coast that's going to affect our weather into the winter. See Mark Ingalls WX. He's been talking about that. We'll talk about it some more, I'm sure, in the podcast this week. So, scientists have evidence that organisms are already being harmed in this way. We know that's happening. The new report confirms that we've crossed the planetary boundary for ocean acidification. There's some real concern that as our water acidifies, there will be significant ecosystem impacts to the marine calcifying species, said Jenny Rubin, a research specialist at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. These are people who are experts in their field. They're trying to tell you things. This acidification could shake up the very foundation of the oceanic food web. Phytoplankton are tiny photosynthetic synthetic organisms that soak up CO2 and expel oxygen. That's what I was saying. These things, they eat CO2 and they give us back oxygen, like plants on land do. Indeed, these plankton gobble up half the CO2 sequestered worldwide by photosynthesis. So that quarter that's gone missing from the cycle that the ocean has helped absorb, half of it happened through this process. And they produce half of Earth's oxygen every year. Half the oxygen on Earth is made from these creatures in the ocean that we are putting at risk. Unfortunately, many species of phytoplankton build shells and may struggle as the oceans relentlessly acidify. These organisms sequester loads of carbon and serve as critical food source for small creatures known as zooplankton, which in turn are consumed by larger animals like fish. Not all the oceans are acidifying equally. Colder locales like the Arctic or Southern Ocean encircles Antarctica more readily acidify than tropical waters. This means polar regions, which may be remote but host a bevy of species like whales, could be approaching the tipping point now where organisms aren't able to build shells. The Southern Ocean's about to tip, says Ken Johnson, a senior scientist who studies the region at Monterey Bay Aquarium Institute, but wasn't involved in the report either. The water is changing fast. We're creeping right up to the edge of the tipping point. Further complicating matters, planetary boundaries often reinforce one another. In addition to acidification, ocean life is dealing with the breaching of the climate boundary, as the seas have absorbed 90% of the excess heat that humans have added to the atmosphere. The ocean is warming because of this. That steadily raised the average ocean temperature, but is driving extreme marine heat waves, further stressing the organisms there. This isn't up for debate. I don't care what your opinion is. We have been watching this. It's been documented. It's fact. We're watching these things happen. This is the absolute fact, okay? So these marine heat waves, that is going on. Mass bleaching and dying of coral, that's going on. It doesn't matter what you think, it's happening, okay? You can't pretend it's not happening. And you can disagree with why it's happening, but you're wrong because we know what is doing it. They're also dealing with the introduction of novel entities, boundary being reached. Chemical and plastic pollution is now injuring and killing oceanic species. We're putting the ocean through a hell of a lot, folks. These overlapping crises are not only making it more difficult for organisms to survive, but maybe making it more difficult for the ocean to keep sequestering carbon. We need it to be able to keep doing this. That's what Caesar and her colleagues will be exploring next, what's happening under these different stressors. Because it's not just ocean acidification. The ocean's losing oxygen. It's warming. How is this impacting this ocean buffering capacity? The good news is that by rapidly reducing greenhouse gas emissions, it says, well, that's not happening. People aren't willing to listen to it. It's like I talk about these things and most of the people are showing up to ridicule and mock me and talk like I don't know what I'm talking about. Even though I am your weather and wilderness specialist you come to get factual information. And when I talk about something you don't like, you're like, well, he doesn't understand that. He just understands everything else. Well, no, it's like it's the whole package. You got to if you want to be a good weatherman, you have to understand how the climate systems of the earth work and why different weather tendencies are showing up now. And then I'm keeping up with them and able to forecast that they're happening, that our fire seasons will be worse. Like I've been on it for the 10 years I've been forecasting at Interior Weather and Wilderness Watchers. I've not failed you to nail the weather stories because I understand the larger picture. Okay, the good news, it says this is why we can come back to it from the edge. It's not happening. That's the bad news, is that we can rapidly reduce greenhouse gas emissions because people are so resistant to it. They're so reluctant to want to hear it. They'd prefer to listen to something they heard from this guy or that guy. Big business is making a killing off things being the way they are. The oil companies own everything. You'll go to the gas pump and you'll complain. You'll be like, these guys are charging too much and they're all these billionaires. and they don't care about us. You'll make all that connection, but then when it comes to this thing that the billionaires want you to repeat, you're like, get right in line. Yep. Oh, climate change isn't happening. Ocean acidification's not happening. Oh no, everything's fine. Everything's fine. These guys who are spending billions of dollars on propaganda, they just have the best interest of everybody at heart. Yeah, it's absolutely breaking my brain trying to keep up with the disconnect that's happening. Anyways, you're not going to hear this stuff from a lot of other people right now because you stand up to say something, you're just going to take a kick in the head from everybody. Like already the vitriol I've heard on the different platforms today has been just astounding. You throw up your hands and be like, well, humans want to march to the edge. They want to march right to the edge. They want to just go for it. What can you do for them? Okay, that's the show. Bye.